The first newspaper ever published in America was in 1690, and it was called Public Occurrences. However, the first Native American paper wasn't published until almost 200 years later. This sparked a change in Native American communication that forever altered the spread of news throughout tribes. In 1828, Andrew Jackson was elected to take the place of John Quincy Adams as the President of the United States of America in the upcoming year. This was the beginning of the Jacksonian period, which, during, the United States made 86 treaties with 26 indigenous nations that forced Native Americans off their land. This pressure to move started to build up from the federal government more and more every year. In 1828, only 3 years before the extremely deadly Trail of Tears, the Cherokee people realized that they had to have a way to unite.
We were already getting pressure from Georgians and the United States government to leave our lands and go west. And our tribal council at the time thought, if we tried to assimilate more, we were already doing that, building schools and homes and farming, just trying to act like our white neighbors, basically, and form a government, things like that we could stay, that they would see that we were equals and we could, they would treat us better. And part of that assimilation process was the newspaper, something to actually also to communicate with our people, to tell them what was going on with the government, local area news, and just share information coming from from the government towards the rest of the tribal members.
The Cherokee Phoenix was the first Native American-run newspaper. A member of the Cherokee tribe, Elias Boondenot, called Galagina or the Buck, was appointed as the editor-in-chief. His pamphlet, An Address to the Whites, in 1826, was based on a speech he made in Philadelphia. This, combined with Boondenot being extremely effective in fundraising, he landed the job. It was vital for every member of the Cherokee tribe to understand the newspaper, so the Cherokee Phoenix was printed in both English and Cherokee. The paper was intended to show adamant resistance against Cherokee removal. Boondenot, an advocate for Cherokee removal, started to publish his ideas, which did not align with the leadership of the Cherokee Nation. In 1832, Boondenot was replaced with Elijah Hicks, who had opposing views. Eventually, the Cherokee Phoenix, which had now been renamed the Cherokee Phoenix and the Indians Advocate, ran out of funding in 1834. However, this was not the end of the paper. It came back as the Cherokee Advocate from 1844 to 1906. Much later, the Cherokee Phoenix came back under the same name in 2000 and is available now in print and virtually. The Cherokee Phoenix opened the door for more Native American newspapers. The Adahonichi was the second paper to be published in a native language, this being Navajo. The Adahonichi was first published in 1943 and ran until 1957. This was then replaced with the Navajo Times.
Penalsos means like the paper. So to translate that as the people's newspaper. People's paper. We are owned by the Navajo people. That makes a difference to us and to all our readers. They all understand that.
There are hundreds of Native American newspapers currently in circulation. There is the Bizkanick for the Choctaw Nation, Charcusta for the Flathead Reservations, the Chickasaw Times for the Chickasaw Nation, to name only a few. These newspapers help keep Native American culture intact and cover news in an increasingly widespread audience. However, the full impact of these newspapers cannot fully take effect due to the multitude of barriers that Native American newspapers have to break. Many Native American newspapers are struggling with technological transitions that would make their paper available to a larger audience.
Just like newspapers all across the country, Native American journalism is kind of having a crisis. readership is down, print is up. Most tribal outlets rely on like the print product, which is not what young people are wanting to read anymore. So I think something's going to have to happen here soon about like switching business models or quickly adapting to like app-based news.
Today, only 17% of staff in the newsroom are not white. This does not align with the current population being made up 37% of minorities in the United States. To compound this, less than 3% of leadership in newsrooms is Native American. Native American newspapers allow for Native voice to be heard. The unique and vital perspective of Native Americans is shown throughout tribal papers. Native American newspapers have been a vessel for Native Americans to unite together for almost 200 years.
But we want to make sure that all of our members what we call at large, the people who are outside of the nation, are also included and informed on what's going on in their tribe. We never want them to feel like they're forgotten. We also, every month, we encourage our members from all over the country to send us their stories, to send us their accomplishments. We want to be the voice of all Choctaw people, no matter whether they're living on the reservation or not. Also make a concerted effort to include as much culture in the paper as possible so that people who aren't here living amongst the Choctaw people and have access 24/7 to Choctaw culture and traditions, that they know that they're aware of those traditions and culture and language and things like that.
As a community that has continually struggled with trying to be torn apart, having a way to spread news and keep entire tribes informed was and is instrumental. Communication is ever changing. This is especially evident when you look at the development of communication throughout Native American tribes influenced by tribal newspapers. These newspapers not only provided a way to receive news that directly influenced Native American tribes, but provided a way for Native Americans to unify in times of division.